Hey guys, and welcome to the Service Alliance podcast. I am your host with the most equipment, Zach Ryder. And today we have a very special guest, someone that I have personally used in my own company for, well, something that's quite important. And if you don't have it, oh boy, are you in for a world of hurt. All right, guys, sit back, relax. We're going to be talking some HR, some people, and the trouble you get in if you don't. Let's get into this. Welcome to my good friend Ian. He is the owner, co-owner, co-founder. The wife's the boss, really, isn't she?
Yes, the wife is HR guy's boss, but I'm known around the circles.
He goes by the nomenclature of the HR guy. His name is Ian, and they own Big Picture Consulting, an HR company. Glad to have you here, man.
Thanks for having me.
I still remember the first time I called you in the middle of a crisis. That was fun.
Oh yeah, that was definitely doozy, and I was actually having lunch after an on-site visit with another client that I squeezed you in between bites of sushi.
Yeah, friend of a friend. We were just talking about that a little bit in the pre-roll. Shayna Shadowin, my office help. I called her up. I'm like, all right, who do you use? Because I don't know what to do. Do you have anything? Do you have any resources? Whatever. And she sent me your direction, and we've been connected since. And so, let's dig into it. Like we always like to ask our guests, who are you? Why should we care? Like, what's your experience? What do you bring to the table? So I'm going to kind of switch this around and bring you up to the floor, brother.
All right. Well, as you said, my name's Ian, and I am the HR guy on Facebook. I'm the owner of The Big Picture Consulting. I have been directly assisting residential and commercial service providers for the last 13 years now, and growing from being safety focused to HR focused to just universal business focus. So, I've run the range of being a technician, both in the Navy and with Geek Squad. I've worked on appliances. I've worked on HVAC. I've worked on plumbing, electrical, computers, car stereo, you name it, I've touched it. And I've also done plenty of retail work. Working in Best Buy, I worked in most of the departments, managed a couple of them. Nothing like going through Black Friday on on the sales floor at Best Buy. And then just opportunity fell in my lap to start helping the trades directly with their biggest vulnerability, which tends to be employee management. We all know how much service providers just love regulations and dealing with Department of Labor. So my wife and I dug in, and we started building out a program to provide this critical resource to contractors all across the country. And here I am 13 years later, still doing it, still loving the people that I work with. And that's the long and short of my illustrious career so far.
Yeah, and you really do love what you do. I see you traveling all over the country. You really do help a lot of service companies in different aspects. I think I was one of the first appliance companies that you brought into the fold. But you've serviced HVAC, plumbing, a whole bunch of other service industries, and you're not just any one state. You are literally, you can handle any
coast to coast.
Yep.
Looking for that on-site visit to Hawaii at some point, but
we have a ton of appliance guys in Hawaii, so we'll see if they're in for that. But here's the thing: if you have an employee, even one employee, and you're running a service business, you need some type of HR, because it, like, you're just sitting on a ticking time bomb if you don't have a plan in place.
And especially in this day and age where everybody is perpetually frustrated with their lives, society is telling everybody that they should be getting more, doing more, getting more out of every iota of effort that they put into things. And it's really caused a sense of entitlement through the workforce, what workforce remains, to really put the screws to employers. And a lot of employers in the trades are older school. You work hard, you're going to get rewarded, and that sort of thing. And there's just communication glitch going on,
Right.
which causes lawsuits and complaints, and then the government gets involved, and bureaucrats, and nobody has time for that mess.
And it's not just the legality of things, right? But you also helped me create a handbook, a safety book. Like, you bring to the table an all around package, the things that, like, I remember us talking, and I'm like, well, is that really something that I need? Right? Like, why would I need something like that? And you really, you broke it down, why that's so important.
Yeah, why is just as important as what. You have to do X, Y, and Z because that's the way you have to do it. And sometimes those rules do in fact make sense, and here's the why. And this is how you sell it to you have to sell things. You have to sell policies to your internal customers, just like you're selling your services to external customers.
Right. And I love that you say it that way, because really your employees are your first line customers, and then they service the end user customers at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So it is critical. It is critical to have that stuff in place. And you really help kind of bring that into that. So what, I know you shared that, like, you've been doing it 13 years. What was really like that first, if there is one, what was really that first kind of thing that was like, holy crap, this is like, this is needed. Like, this is just so needed,
Well, hate to be stereotypical, especially as an HR professional, but have you spoken to contractors lately? Blue collar folks, they speak in certain ways, and the mannerisms it's easy to misinterpret being direct with being angry or being offensive, or what the intention is. And that's something that's really missing across the board today, is identifying what the intention is. Because if somebody's intending to help or bring attention to something, it shouldn't immediately be taken as a personal attack or offensive. It should be taken in the light of it, especially with the other side of the coin of everybody's view has to be respected. But then you don't respect it because you're shutting down and attacking them because you perceived an attack, and it's a never-ending cycle. So it's all about removing emotion from the decision-making process, whether you're reacting to, my employee just did this ridiculous thing, how do I respond? As you and I have discussed many times over the years, to, this is what the government's proposing for a new regulation that I have to deal with.
That's pretty much how that first conversation went. My employee just did this. What the?
How do I get rid of this person and not get sued? If I terminate this person, do I have to pay unemployment? What does paying unemployment even mean? A lot of employers don't really understand how those systems work or what the impact is. There's a lot of bad information out there, a lot of myths involved with everything from letting somebody go, the classic 2-week notice, what happens if you let somebody go under XYZ circumstance, and of course payroll. Identifying if and when you have to pay overtime rates and what those include, and there's just a lot of myth out there that I spend an inordinate amount of time trying to correct.
No, myths don't get perpetuated in the service industry. That only happens somewhere else. Come on now.
Yeah, the joy of social media.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's just accelerated the issues that we face. Really, I mean, I think in this on demand social world, right? Like, it's so easy to get bad information and get bad information quickly on both sides. Whether you're an employer or you're an employee, you're getting bad information thrown at you nonstop. And so, you know, it's important just as much for the employees as it is for employers to have the proper information. And that's part of what you do. Can you speak into that piece of
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, everybody has to be on the same page. And that's where the employee handbook, the safety manual, training program, whether you're talking about safety training or process and procedure training, you have to be with intentional communication with your employees. If you allow people to assume, including yourself, if you're assuming that they understand, it's going to come back and bite you. If they assume that this rule means this and they don't ask the question, you can't fix the issue. So that's why you have to be clear enough in your policies to keep everybody on the same page, but still give yourself the flexibility to respond with intention to any individual situation that occurs.
For sure. It is important to just really bring everyone into that same alignment across the board. And sometimes, like we had talked about, that doing that every year, you almost have to, like, people have a very short memory span.
And that's why, you know, take OSHA, for example. They require certain topics to be covered each and every year. And, you know, there's only so much you can do to freshen up those materials and make it engaging in year over year when you're talking about the same ladder safety or the same machine guards or wearing your, you know, hearing protection if you're going to be using a grinder, something like that.
I mean, people don't enjoy that corny, like, you know, dummies flying off and being blood ketchups.
Yeah, I try to avoid those cliche videos. Now, if you can do an in-house demonstration, it's all good. That can play.
I think you're violating some safety rules by doing that one, my friend.
Well, not actual bodies. A lot of companies have that dressed up mannequin. Go at it, boys. Let's test the durability of those uniforms.
No, that's fine. Well, and that's part of
that's what makes me different.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I do as the HR guy is, you know, I look at HR from the lens of, and safety from the lens of the business owner. And you have a mission, you have a vision for your company, and you want to do X, Y, and Z. And the reason why contractors hate the Department of Labor and all these regulations, even if they make sense, is that it slows them down. They're not out there solving the problem that they went into business to solve.
Right.
So I understand that, and I approach it from that line to do risk analysis. You know, if you proceed in this way, here's the best and worst case scenario. Here's how it can go wrong. I get to play what if all day, every day. And coming up with very interesting business solutions to common problems.
Well, that's the thing, as business owners, we know what we know and we don't what we don't. And so there's there's really massive blind spots in every business. And it's a really unfortunate thing. I'm telling you from experience, when that first major thing happens, it is literally crisis mode. It is crisis mode, and you better have someone that you can make a phone call to. And what's better is preventing that. But even still, you can take as many preventions as you want. You can put as many things in place as you want. But there's still going to be a crisis mode. There is still going to be a phone call okay, I know what the policies are, but I don't understand this Greek. Help me out. What is that like in your world? Like how do you serve your customers in that way?
Okay, sorry. For some reason, still having technical issues.
It happens. I'm the tech guy, and I have more issues than my team. So, no. So what I was saying is like, there's always that crisis mode. There's always that, hey, I see this policy in our book. What does this mean? So what does that look like in your world? Like, how do you help owners and employees through that process?
So first and foremost, when we're developing a new employee handbook, we do a one-on-one interview where a lot of resources out there, they're giving you endless lists of check boxes with no context. And that's how you end up getting all these policies that it's just all Greek and legalese nonsense to you without, and you just put it in because hey, you're trusting that resource. Well, that's not how we roll. We do a one-on-one interview to learn about your company, your policies. We ask you about policies that we've seen repeatedly throughout the trades and throughout our experience to help you identify, I've never thought of that. Yeah, this is how I want to handle it, or let us have an internal discussion and we'll get back to you. And then we write that draft, and then we give you the draft to actually review. And sometimes that happens in a matter of days. Some companies are sitting on it for a couple of years, but it's one of those things that we can't force it down anybody's throat. It has to be believed by management and has to be embraced by management as part of their vision if the employees are going to have any chance of buying it.
Right.
And if you're not going to live the employee handbook, you shouldn't even have one. But then that leads to other problems.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you do, I mean, you're building this business, right? You're working hard day in and day out, and you need to have some form of protection for yourself, as well as your employees, right? You can't expect someone to do something if there is no expectation, right? If you have no clear guidelines on what you're going for, then they're going to do whatever. It's going to become the Wild West. That's on you as the business owner. And so
and then you as the business owner get frustrated, angry, you lash out, and all of a sudden you're the bad guy.
Yep.
And that's the last thing you want, because in an employer-employee he said, she said, guess who loses every time?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You're at the advantage for sure. You have to make sure that your I's and your T's and all that stuff is crossed and dotted, and everything's done the right way. So, she had multiple plans. Like when I started, there was kind of like one thing. Now you've kind of learned through working with different trades and working with a lot of different companies. You've kind of pivoted the way that you do things. So share a little bit about the company and how you guys approach this.
So we offer a variety of services from, a la carte services. If you want just an employee handbook, we'll go through the employee handbook process. If you want just a safety program, we'll do the safety program. If you just have a random question and want to chat for half an hour, okay, I'll do it and send you a bill. However, as with most businesses, we're priced to bundle. So we offer a variety of retainer level services based on your company needs, your management structure, and really how much you want to integrate us into your management team to help you build and grow your business compliantly and focus on culture. So that starts with our associate retainer, which is really reactive. We have all the base documents. We'll get you set up with a new employee handbook, safety manual, safety training topics every month, new hire packet, anything that you want customized. And then we're on speed dial for any employee situations. My employee just did this. I just got this weird email. I'm, receiving really this notice.
Really, I cannot stress how helpful that is.
And that's the bare minimum. I mean, the setup fee is less than buying the individual core documents a la carte, and then it's only $150 a month to put us on speed dial and have access to that professional support system um, at your beck and call. And as you know, I answer the phone almost 24/7.
Pretty close. Yeah.
And whether it's shooting me a message on Facebook or giving me a call, sending a text, shooting an email, whatever, I and my team pride ourselves on quick responses and digging in on those projects.
And you guys do a great job. I like, you can't hire an in-house employee for that. There's no way you can hire an HR person for that. And I've used some of the other services that were bundled with payroll services and stuff like that. I'm telling you, the quality is just not there. Like, I do appreciate the level of care that you put into it. It reflects the level of care that I put into my own company, right? Like,
I want to see my clients succeed and not have their sandcastle knocked over by the government because of one disgruntled ex-employee who deserved to get fired. I hate seeing bad guys win. And sometimes that is the employer if they follow on the path. And my job is to be real. I don't blow smoke. I'm not, I don't coddle people's feelings. It's a matter of, this is what could happen if you go down this road. I understand the desire, but you got to put on the brakes and think about it. And with that in mind, as you said, when you started with me, I really only had that one retainer option that was one size fits all. But as I've grown, and brought in more clients, different companies have needed different resources. So I created 2 more levels of retainer, the HR manager level retainer, which also includes a monthly coaching session, whether that's HR training for in-house managers, project management, just getting together to see what the state of the union is. It's just including me in a monthly manager meeting, which you should be having anyway. And then also employee interaction events. So if you're going into a problematic discipline or termination session, call us up. We'll Zoom in and act as an official witness and provide a written statement to prevent that he said, she said. This is really critical, actually for smaller companies. It's a very valuable service because you don't always have a witness that you can call in to act as that third party that wouldn't be immediately disregarded as biased.
Right.
So, and then the director level increases everything. It's bi-weekly meetings. This is normally for my larger companies, 5 interactions a month, includes a 1-day on-site visit or my proprietary payroll system that I developed called FlexRate. And it's all there for, it's really just, what do you need? So we start with a preliminary consult, find out about what it is where you're at, what's bringing you to me, what you want to get in place, and then we determine together what level fits best to plug us into your operation.
Yeah, and so that kind of spurred something else. One of the posts, because obviously, I follow you, I get your newsletters, I get all the things, right? Like, let's talk about that, because one of the big pushes that you've had for probably, I would say, the last 6 months is pushing back on compensation, right? So many, especially like the appliance industry, we have it a little bit different, and certain states have it even just that much more different. You and I had walked through what my compensation plan was and made sure that I was covered. But there's a lot of people doing it wrong, and it is gonna come back to bite them so badly.
Yep. And that comes more from those myths about how and when you owe overtime. So that's the biggest violation point. Easiest fruit for the Department of Labor to grab is payroll violations, whether you're not clocking in, clocking out correctly. If you are paying commissions or piece rate or spiffs, making sure that you know whether or not your employees qualify for any of the exempt statuses or not. And if they do, you need to make sure that your pay structure doesn't conflict with that claimed status. So, for example, in the appliance world, appliance service repair, you actually qualify for what's called the 7I exemption, which is the commissioned employees of a retail or service establishment. This is something that's not available to HVAC, plumbing, and electricians because they're construction. So what
Which
that
is really
means,
funny because they do service, but they're classified differently.
yep,
That's one of the myths that I wanted to kind of highlight that.
yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, they do enough work that is considered construction that they don't qualify for the designation, even if their employee is purely service.
Right.
And not doing the install work. That install work, because they get so much revenue from it, it removes that possible exemption.
So our HVAC guys that are listening, our plumbers that are listening, you cannot necessarily pay the way you're paying. You need a compliance checkup, and you need it like yesterday. So anyway,
Absolutely.
continue.
So with appliance repair companies, what you get to benefit from is you can take that exemption, but if you're paying hourly plus commissions, you're automatically cutting yourself off from that because you're going to be paying them overtime on their base hourly rate, which now means that you're accepting them as a non-commissioned or non-exempt employee, and you have to pay extra overtime on those commissions that you're also paying them. So if you're going to claim an exemption, you have to claim it, and your compensation has to be aligned for it. If you don't qualify for it, then you need to pivot and do something else and just budget for the overtime expense. And it's really not that painful for most companies to make that switch. The only ones that really feel the pain and have to do some accounting juggling is those that are paying pure performance pay, pure commission, that sort of thing, and they have to switch to paying overtime. 10 hours of overtime a week equals 10% increase in your labor cost.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta budget for it.
Yeah, but the cost on the other side of that, because like you hit the nail on the head, the government is lazy.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to go for the lowest hanging, the easiest fruit that's going to be the most, just like us. We're going to go for a low hanging fruit that's going to produce a lot of profit for them. There you go. They're gonna gun for you, and the thing that they know that so many companies are doing wrong, and it's so easy to prove.
Oh yes,
They already have the proof they need. They don't have to work hard to get that proof. It's right there.
Wage and hour is particularly that way. They don't do random inspections. They go off of complaints. And if somebody submits a complaint along with a pay stub, guess what? They've already got you.
Yep.
If they're calling you, they've got something on you. And then all you can do is try to minimize that damage and get it fixed as quickly as possible.
It's an expensive fine too. Like you don't want to deal with the back pay and the fines and you think it's expensive to pay an employee. Wait till you start paying the government on top of that.
$1,800 per employee per violation type, plus the back wages going back anywhere between 2 and 5 years, depending on the circumstance.
So for those of you who aren't math geniuses, that's a lot of frickin' money. It's a lot of
good way to summarize it. Yeah, it adds up quickly.
It's a heck of a lot cheaper to pay $150 a month to not find yourself in a really bad spot than it is to do something stupid. So and not every payroll company is going to tell you this. Not every payroll company that has HR is going to tell you this.
Almost none of them know it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's not really their fault though. I'm gonna give some credit there, is that the trades and home services and trying to incentivize the individuals that you're sending out to people's home representing your brand, it's less than 2% of payroll run in the country operates on an incentive pay system for non-exempt employees. So individual incentives, you have to add in overtime. You can only calculate overtime after the base wage for the pay period has been determined. So you can't say I'm going to do hourly plus the overtime or the commission, whichever one's higher. You have to figure that out before you apply overtime and then proceed accordingly. And I can do all of that. I can make any compensation plan compliant anywhere in the country, even wacky California.
Yeah, and I mean, you were able to do it here for me in Illinois. I was able to set up that we had a specific set of tiered commissions that we paid, and if the employee fell below a certain amount, then it rolled to, there was a base pay that we had to put out, right? That they could not be below a certain amount, and so if their commissioning was going to fall below that certain amount, then that was the rate that we had to pay them. And you helped like formulate that whole process and made sure that I was compliant in everything that I was doing. So, as well as the handbook and the safety guide, all the things that you're like, why do I need that? And then something happens and find out why.
Just like the old adage, the customer's always right. Well, that's not true. We all know this.
Right.
But the customer is always the customer, and the customer is human. So they're going to do wacky things. The same thing goes for your employees. They're not always right. They are your internal customers. They are representing your brand, so you want them on your team.
And they are going to do wacky things.
And they're human, and they're going to do wacky things. Complacency is, a safety threat all the time.
Mm-hmm.
As well as being complacent with the rules and regulations. If you are not adhering, you as employers and managers, if you're not adhering to the policies that you establish, why should they?
Right.
If you're not placing value on it, why should your team? And that circles back to the intentional communication and staying on the same page. If a policy needs to change because management decides, hey, this just doesn't work and we don't want to enforce it, change it. Do it with intention. Don't just ignore it, because by ignoring one part of the handbook, you could be invalidating other things.
Right.
So that's why we focus on a living document.
And that's why you're called Big Picture Consulting.
Yeah,
because you look at the whole picture. So I've really appreciated this, man. I've really enjoyed being able to bring this to our Service Alliance community and just be able to share some of the things that you're doing out there. And I'm sure we could do another episode. Names just to protect the innocent.
Yeah, these rabbit holes, HR and safety rabbit holes, they go on for forever because the government's wacky. Depending on your state, they're even wackier. Whoever's sitting in the White House does have direct impact on how hard enforcement efforts are, how much funding is going to go towards enforcement versus training and education. And if you just protect yourself from the beginning, you save yourself so much time and drama.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Well, I want to wrap up with this. Thank you again for your time. And then you also have a special offer for those owners that are in our audience.
Yes, absolutely. And anybody who reaches out, and I'm sure you'll pass on all the contact information, but you can look me up on Facebook as the HR guy. If you reference this podcast, I will give you your first month for free on whatever retainer level that we decide on.
That's awesome.
So anywhere from $150 to $750 value just for mentioning the podcast.
That is an awesome deal. It is a worthwhile investment. Speaking from someone who's made that investment myself, I appreciate that offer to our community, and I appreciate the work that you do to keep us all compliant and keep us safe, and to help elevate the service industry across the board. So I thank you for your time today, Ian, and I'm looking forward to chatting some more.
Yes, sir. Thank you as always.
Well, guys, that was Ian with Big Picture Consulting, and man, HR and payroll and all that can be a mind-boggling experience and a mind-numbing experience. But when you have someone in your corner that cares about you and takes it to a level with such a passion that they really take and care for your company, your employees, and you as the business owner, it's just so much easier and so much better. So we thank him for coming on. And until next time, this is Service Alliance Podcast. We're signing off.